Technology. One of the most interesting things one can imagine. But where will the evolution of technology lead us? Through going out of space and exploring the realms of human consciousness. The 21st century has certainly led us into new and exciting possibilities that were never thought of before. And now we are edging into the realm where huge risks are being taken upon the public in order to make profit. Surveillance have been one of the hottest topics in the year 2013 and will continue being the hottest topic until the issue has been resolved. Join me on a path of discovery looking at the future of technology, surveillance, and our sovereign right to be human on planet Earth.
Recently, we learned that our governments, working in concert, have created a system of worldwide mass surveillance, watching everything we do. A child born today will grow up with no conception of privacy at all. They'll never know what it means to have a private moment to themselves, an unrecorded, unanalyzed thought. And that's a problem, because privacy matters. Privacy is what allows us to determine who we are and who we want to be.
If someone wants to know why their own government has decided to go on a fishing expedition through every personal record or private document, through the library books that you read, the phone calls that you've made, the emails that you've sent, this legislation gives people no rights to appeal the need for such a search in a court of law.
When I'm president, one of the first things I'm going to do is call in my attorney general and say to him or her, I want you to review every executive order that's been issued by George Bush, whether it relates to warrantless wiretaps or detaining people or reading emails or whatever it is. I want you to go through every single one of them, and if they are unconstitutional, if they're encroaching on civil liberties unnecessarily, we are going to overturn them.
I will provide our intelligence and law enforcement agencies with the tools they need to track and take out the terrorists without undermining our Constitution and our freedom. We need to find a way forward to make sure that we can stop terrorists while protecting privacy and liberty of innocent Americans. As for our common defense, we reject as false the choice between our safety and our ideals.
When it comes to telephone calls, nobody is listening to your telephone calls. That's not what this program's about. As was indicated, what the intelligence community is doing is looking at phone numbers and durations of calls. They are not looking at people's names, and they're not looking at content.
Over the past century, but accelerating over the past couple of decades, we've seen the emergence of a kind of global data field. The planet itself, natural systems, human systems, physical objects, have always generated an enormous amount of data, but we didn't used to be able to hear it, to see it, to capture it. Now we can, because all of this stuff is now instrumented. And it's all interconnected, so we can actually have access to it. So, in effect, the planet has grown a central nervous system.
So there's about 1 billion people using the internet at the moment, and that's set to grow to probably 2 billion in the next couple of years. And we think that's quite a lot, but over the last 10 years I've been looking at devices being linked up together using networks, so little sensors on things. These temperature sensors and traffic sensors and flow rate of water and how much electricity, all transmitting data. It won't be long, and it may even have happened already, that there's more things on the internet than there are people on the internet. That's really what we mean by the Internet of Things. Then you get this sea of data that you just drown in, literally. And there's this triangle that's been quite well documented called the DIKW triangle. That's data, information, knowledge, and the little tip at the top is wisdom. The D at the bottom is a sea of data, and when we get this data back home and start doing stuff with it, we apply intelligence to it, and transform up that stack. So we go from data into information into knowledge, and then glean some wisdom from that. And that's really what the analytics part of our Smarter Planet story is all about.
The world is becoming globally integrated, and it has to become smarter. It is a world that's connected economically, socially, and technically. Every natural and man-made system is becoming instrumented, interconnected, and intelligent.
And we can bring that information together to get a picture in real time of the way things are working and make more intelligent decisions about the way that we optimize our infrastructure or change the way our business processes works or move resources around the planet.
To focus on the technologies of the future: nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, cognitive technology, genetics and robotics. Doing so will allow us to find new sources of energy, create fundamentally new architecture and transportation, allow unprecedented developments of human cognitive abilities, refine artificial intelligences and brain-computer interfaces, simulate complex systems, create humanoid robots and cyborgs, and with the help of nanorobots, we may develop manageable matter. Find ways to transfer one's personality to an artificial carrier. Yet what we need is not just another technological revolution, but a new civilizational paradigm. We need new philosophy and ideology, new ethics, new culture and new psychology, and even new metaphysics. We must reset our limits, go beyond ourselves, beyond the Earth, and beyond the solar system. This is an adequate response to the challenges of our time. Thus, new reality and future man will arise. Could it happen spontaneously, by itself? Unlikely.
2045 is a social movement group dedicated to a futuristic research into nanotechnology, robots, and AI systems. 2015 to 2020, the emergence and widespread use of affordable Android avatars controlled by brain-computer interface. Coupled with related technologies, avatars will give people a number of new features: ability to work in dangerous environments, perform rescue operations, and travel in extreme situations. 2020 to 2025, creation of autonomous life support system for the human brain linked to a robot avatar will save people whose body is completely worn out or irreversibly damaged. Any patient with an intact brain will be able to return to a fully functional bodily life. 2030 to 2035, creation of a computer model of the brain and human consciousness, with the subsequent development of means to transfer individual consciousness onto an artificial carrier. 2045. This is the time when subsequent independent minds will receive new bodies with capabilities far exceeding those of ordinary humans. A new era for humanity will arrive. Singularity. The robots are coming to steal our jobs. The singularity is a system of intelligence artificially created that is more intelligent than a human being. Considering that intelligence is measured upon different levels of perception of our awareness. One argument is that artificial intelligence can never have consciousness. This defines a human being to an artificial intelligence. If you worry about the robots coming, don't, because they're already here. Artificial intelligence agents are already involved with every aspect of our lives. They keep inboxing free from spam. They help us make our web transactions, they fly our planes, and if Google gets its way, it'll just soon drive our cars for us. Robots may have their own virtual World Wide Web or Wikipedia. After a 4-year build, Robot Earth is a giant network database repository where robots can share information and learn from each other. The problem right now is that robots are often developed specifically for one task. Everyday challenges that happen all at the time in their environment make all the program's actions unsuitable. Google bets on the Internet of Things with a $3.2 billion Nest deal. Nest is a company that develops thermostats that can be controlled externally via Wi-Fi. It measures your behaviour patterns and controls the temperature in your house according to your movements. You can control the device via your smartphone. However, this does raise issues into privacy concerns into who else can control your thermostat system externally. There are other thermostat systems out there. Honeywell has a voice-controlled Wi-Fi smart thermostat. Every company out there has devices or appliances that are Wi-Fi enabled. This forces the consumers to be a part of this smart home, smart grid around the world. The new smart meters are being forcibly thrusted upon the public in order to curb the energy bills. The customers of these energy companies are being left with no choice but to bow down to the demands of the energy companies and governments. The long-term health effects of these Wi-Fi enabled devices is yet to be scientifically divulged. If every item in your house is Wi-Fi enabled, from your plug sockets to your windows, to your computer, to your smartphone, to your smart TV, to your smart meter on your house, your smart thermostat, your smart car, the whole world could be bombarded with a whole array of Wi-Fi connected items that could sterilize the young and lessen the immune system in the everyday average person. Very few people will be able to escape the bombardment of signals in large cities and large towns. Not only do you have the biological effects, but you also have psychological effects, which are also unknown at this current moment. These topics aren't being dealt with to an extensive degree in the mainstream media. Not only do you have companies like Amazon, Google, and Honeywell investing in these types of technologies, but IBM is one of the leading figures in creating this smart planet, smart city, and smart home system. If you look at their website, you can certainly see that they have an agenda to change the whole global system into their ideology. Cisco and IBM and other big tech companies have been practicing by making large cities with this ideology in mind. An ideology to help you get what you want before you even know that you want it. But the question remains, do you really want it?
Technology has given us the smartphone, which will allow us to communicate across the world, sometimes looking at the person's face while we're speaking. It allows us to access information, powerful information, while we're traveling on trains or buses or sitting in a restaurant or at our office. At the same time, it can enslave, and if you look around you, you will see those who are enslaved. You can walk into many restaurants at lunchtime and look at the people. Over half of them are not looking at their partner or the person they're sitting across the table from. They're looking down at their smartphone and texting. Sometimes everybody is doing that. That seems like slavery to me, where you are enslaved to the device to the point that you completely block out human presence, and I think that's a very bad sign. We need to use technology for what technology is intended for. Automobiles to get us places faster, telephones so that we don't have to run across town to talk to somebody. But when they become our masters, then we become the enslaved.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
It's carrying a pretty heavy load there. So the question here is why? Why is Google entering sort of this robotics space when really it's more of a virtual company, right? So some are saying it's trying to compete with Amazon and its drones, potentially, right? But I think it's much more likely that they're simply trying to diversify their portfolio. Their revenue stream currently is largely based on their advertisement revenue, right? 95% of their $50 billion per year revenue is based on advertisement. Right. So it's a huge chunk, and it's important for them to recognize that though that might be the case now, it may not necessarily be the case later and have additional revenue streams to consider. What they might do with robots, I don't know. What do you think?
Motorola patents an e-tattoo that can read your thoughts by listening to unvocalized words in your throat. Motorola is also one of those companies brought out by Google. This technology is merging man with machine, a transhumanist agenda that was once popularized by an author called Julian Huxley. Google has recently been researching microphones that can hang from your ceiling and direct you into your daily lives. Technology could direct our daily lives, giving instructions on how to go about daily activities. A microphone hanging from a ceiling responding to verbal queries would remove the need to whip out the phone and remind yourself what time tomorrow's flight leaves. It could also make sure that you don't miss the flight altogether. Like a great personal assistant, it will interrupt you and say, "You've got to leave now." It will bring you information you want, said Mr. Huffman. The information could be relayed to a wearable device. Perhaps it might have a small screen which you only interact with your voice and may be touched but nothing else. Scientists has also developed an injectable wireless LEDs helping researchers understand brain activity. Miniaturization of optoelectronic components has driven many advances in computers and communications. Rogers has been quietly pioneering the new field of discoverable electronics. Recently, he has also developed flexible electronic tattoos to apply sensors and communications directly to the skin. The real market, however, is the brain. Working with neurosurgeons, Rogers has developed a unique silk-based electrodes which can meld with the folded cortical surface of the brain and read electrical activity. The title of the paper, Injectable Cellular Scale Optoelectronics with Applications for Wireless Optogenetics, indicates that the new probe technology is both wireless and injectable. That is true, however some clarifications are in order. The device is not injected into the bloodstream and does not home into the brain in science fiction fashion. Rather, the probe is mounted in a rigid injector with degradable components that can later release the probe. It remains tethered to the wireless transmitter and is not integrated to the probe itself. That will be the next great feat of miniaturization. Having all that sensing control technology on a single probe tip gives a lot of diagnostic power. Scientists have also developed flexible transparent electronics that can wrap around the hair. Researchers at EDH have developed electronic components that are thinner and more flexible than before. They can even be wrapped around a single hair without damaging the electronics. This opens up new possibilities for ultra-thin, transparent sensors that are literally easy on the eye. This can be used for so-called smart contact lenses as a potential area of application for their flexible electronics. In the initial tests, the researchers attached thin film transistors along with strain gaugers and standard contact lenses. They placed these in artificial eye and were able to examine whether the membrane and particularly the electronics could withstand the blending of retinas of the eye and continue into function. The singularity in the transhumanist futurist perspective is looking more closer than ever before.
We've made a lot of advances in wearables, but there's still some fundamental problems that we haven't solved. Like one of them is the mechanical mismatch between humans and electronics, right? So electronics are boxy and rigid, humans are curvy and soft. That's a mechanical mismatch problem. Well, a researcher at the University of Illinois, his name is Dr. Rogers, what he discovered is that he could use standard CMOS techniques to make islands of high-performance silicon connected by accordion-like structures that would allow it to stretch up to 200% and still be performing. And what he did is he founded a company and they started making electronic tattoos. So I'm wearing one here on my arm.
Do we have a camera to get a...
This is a developmental system made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is work with them to advance a tattoo that could be used for authentication. Now, it may be true that 10 to 20-year-olds don't want to wear a watch on their wrist, but you can be sure that they'll be far more interested in wearing an electronic tattoo, if only to piss off their parents. Right?
Well, if you've got a smartphone and even once posted an online picture, you need to know about a new threat.
This is something. New technology can allow hackers to track down you and your kids, even from a simple email. Russ.
Mark and Elizabeth, the technology allows strangers to cherry pick from online pictures posted all over the web and then find the home, work, or even school of that person in the pic.
Perfect. Just like that. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good girl.
We gave NBC Action News staffer Suzanne McDonald and daughter Lainey a smartphone.
And a big smile towards Mommy's face. Yeah.
To see just how threatening a seemingly innocent snapshot
Beautiful.
could be once loaded online.
That's frightening.
We then combed Twitter and sites like Facebook, Craigslist, and Photobucket searching for locals. We found a menu of nearby children and, with the click of a mouse, their locations.
That is legitimately terrifying.
It's a new and frightening threat to parents.
So we right-click, then we hit that data file.
That's the program.
And the full threat is even an unknown to many internet crime experts.
Had you ever seen it go this far before?
No.
Gone are the days when the only time you'd be asked for your fingerprints is if you were suspected of a crime. Nowadays, they're starting them young, at school to be precise. Research shows more than 1 million school children have been fingerprinted and their biometric data used to identify them for things like cash-free lunches, checking attendance, and what library books they're borrowing. It is controversial, though. Big Brother Watch is particularly worried about schools having access to this information, and Emma Carr, particularly when it's been collected without parents' consent.
Well, absolutely. So it seems that over 1 million children in a single academic year had this information collected. So I think it's really necessary for schools to be transparent, especially when it's relating to very sensitive personal information.
What's your solution then? Obviously, parental consent should be sought. How can we make sure, for example, that this data is discarded once children leave school?
Well, the first stage in terms of ensuring that the right procedures were taking place was updating the law to say that parents absolutely have a legal guarantee that their consent should be sought. And also children have to be incorporated into the process as well, not only as part of the education process to teach them the importance of questioning when passing on information, but also to understand just what's happening within the system in the school itself.
Okay, but
Okay, so wait. So it's really true. So what this means is that becomes my first superpower. I really want this superpower. It means that my arms are like wires, my hands are like alligator clips. When I touch my phone, my computer, my door, my car, I'm authenticated in. First superpower. Like, I want that.
So we're not shipping that right away.
Yeah, no. We're not shipping that right away. But it
But
sounds like...
this is FDA cleared?
So here's the thing. This is not science fiction. This pill was actually made by a company called Proteus, and they've developed it for medical applications. That pill has been CE stamped and cleared by the FDA. You can take 30 of those per day for the rest of your life.
And then what happens? Does your heart
Nothing.
beat change? Does your...
We can just tell that
you-
you've taken the pill. I mean, the medical
Yeah.
the medical application...
Does Google now know everything I do and everywhere I go? Because, let's face it,
Here,
we like
just,
you guys, but you're from Google.
Just give him some water and let him take that pill.
The second method, get locations, we're going to click on that, and that's going to return back in a KML file a list of all the places where Nick has checked in using his smartphone. So we're now going to click on that link, and that's going to open the KML file. And you can see that Nick has spent a lot of his time checking in up in the Mid-Atlantic and then also down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then a few places in between. So we're going to turn this off and jump back into Riot. And we're going to go and get photos. One of the things we've noticed is that when people take pictures and post them on the internet using their smartphones, that the phone will actually embed the latitude and longitude into the EXIF header data of that image. So we're going to take advantage of that by bringing down all the pictures where Nick has checked in and then placing those on Google Earth. So let's click on that link. Again, it'll bring down a KML file, and we'll post them up on Google Earth. And we'll zoom in here to Washington Nationals Park. And that'll bring back a picture of Nick. And so now we know where Nick has gone, and we know now what Nick looks like. So now we know where Nick's going, we know what he looks like. Now we want to try to predict where he may be in the future. So we're going to go ahead and call this this get top places method. It's a very basic analytic, but it's going to return back a pie chart that'll show us the top 10 places that Nick checks in. And you see here the gym is the top place, followed closely by Dallas-Fort Worth. So we're going to analyze the place. So we're going to type in place equals gym, and then username Nick Knies. And this is going to go out to Gowalla and Foursquare and bring back all the check-ins and do some analysis on them. So we're going to go ahead and click on View Graphs. And this brings back check-ins by month. You can see here that he's checked in the most in June, at the gym. I guess he's getting ready for the beach season, working on a six-pack. You can also see that the check-ins by day, Monday is the highest day, followed closely by Wednesday. And then here's the most interesting. If you look in check-ins by hour, 6 a.m. appears to be obviously the most frequently visited time at the gym. So if you ever did want to try to get a hold of Nick, or maybe get a hold of his laptop, you might want to visit the gym at 6 a.m. on Monday.
I do have a stance as an individual and as a member of society. I do not want someone looking through my bedroom window, whether it's an impartial observer or not, whether they're going to prosecute me or not. I want some privacy to do the things that we as human beings need privacy for. And we're losing that. We're losing that to a great extent. And it's not just the NSA, by the way, that is spying on us. I mean, the NSA was the one that was first outed by Edward Snowden. But I can guarantee you that all other covert government agencies, of which there are more than 15, are doing the same thing. The CIA, the FBI, military intelligence. We know it's happening. And that alarms me. It truly alarms me. It's not what we created government for. We didn't create a government that could watch over us and keep us safe from ourselves. We created a government so that it could provide facilities to make life reasonable. Roads, schools, all the things that governments should be doing. This simply is not correct, and so I needed to do something.
Like the food industry, many other corporations are consolidating together, buying each other out, and changing the dynamics of the market. Branding is a key aspect of branding your product, and Google is expanding at an ever-increasing rate. Its position on the NSA scandal is somewhat confusing, with big corporations like Facebook, AOL, Yahoo are all clubbing together to change the government policy on the NSA. However, at the same time, these companies are the ones who are actually creating this surveillance state. The informal motto of Google is "Don't be evil." However, the stance of Google increasingly becomes somewhat of a sinister agenda. An agenda to dominate the market into such a way that it becomes somewhat of a technocratic dictatorship that influences government. These big corporations are collecting your data and selling it on for profit. However, it is not just these corporations that are creating the surveillance police state around us. Private security firms like G4S and private military contractors like BAE Systems, Raytheon and Agnes are there to continuously make profit out of the security systems we have in place in the UK, in the US, other Western countries and around the world. All the information today given is only what is available on the internet. No doubtedly, there are projects that are not yet known in the public. The idea that we can have a global super surveillance state and anyone doing anything wrong according to the AI systems is totally incomprehensible. Where everything you do, say, think or feel is all being monitored by a super AI system, and if you don't comply with the rules of this AI system, it can take you out by killer drones, all programmed. We haven't even talked about technologies that can erase memories and implant false memories, ideas, thoughts, feelings. Think of a cross between Terminator, Minority Report, and 1984. These science fiction stories have paved the way to our imaginations. China has successfully tested the first supersonic missile delivery vehicle capable of penetrating the US missile defense system and delivering nuclear warheads within record-breaking speeds, the Pentagon officials have confirmed. Supersonic vehicles, which are also being designed by the US, India, Russia, are developed for precise targeting, rapid delivery weapons, and are being tested to outmaneuver hostile missiles and space defenses. Mark Stokes, a former US air officer, told Washington Free Beacon, a boost glide missile theoretically would be intended to counter existing mid-course missile defenses. The question always arises, what are these technologies being used for? What is the ideology behind the people making them? Do governments investing in these technologies want to dominate not only the global market through the large corporations, but dominate the military-industrial complex? We have seen light for the true reasons for war over the past decades, but humanity is currently in a silent war. A war with each other against what appears to be elite psychopathic people paving the way for a control system. This war is against our sovereignty. It is a war on our consciousness. However, technologies that are coming to light in this 21st century are quite worrying in terms of our sovereignty as human beings on planet Earth. I'm not trying to paint the picture of an apocalyptic, zombie, end-of-the-world agenda. I've been looking at the facts, and the facts stand and speak for themselves.
I think when we say killer robots, most people think of drones. But killer robots are weapons that would make drones look primitive. At least with a drone, there is a human being who looks at a computer screen, sees the target, and pushes the buttons to fire the missiles and kill. Various militaries are doing research on weapons that would have no human being involved in the targeting and killing of human beings. And we found that shocking and horrifying, that people are really thinking it is okay to give the right to target and kill human beings to machines. Correct. But there are many precursors to what we call killer robots. The U.S., for example, is testing the X-47B, which is a subsonic super drone, as it is called. The UK is testing the Tyrannus. European countries under France are testing the Neuron. China has just tested its own stealth drone. We're not quite certain about what Russia is testing, but I do know that Russia announced in 2013 that they would be opening a military robot center in 2014. And there are prototypes from the stealth drones all the way down to micro robots, which are the size of a mosquito, that could fly into a room and either do surveillance or fly into a room and inject a toxin and kill the target. And it's very frightening that people think this is okay.
Where do you want technology to go? You, the consumer, have a choice to direct our future for you and your children. Are you helping to support the surveillance state encroaching on the world? Or can you help limit the surveillance thrusted upon the world population by raising awareness, limiting personal information given over the internet to ensure humanity doesn't get entangled in our own World Wide Web?